The main challenge of writing is the same for most of us. How do I find the time, energy, and intellectual momentum to produce the writing I want to produce? Whether that's creative or academic writing, whether it's for a class or a writing contest, or eventual publication. How do I get started? It's hard. Let's just agree to that. Writing is hard. It's time consuming to do it well, and sometimes you can spend a lot of time on writing without producing very much that you actually like. Different writers have different strategies for accomplishing assigned writing, and that goes for professionals as well as for students. So let's take a minute and do a little self-reflection, and then talk about those strategies. Consider this. Are you an overwriter or an underwriter? If someone asks you to write 5 pages, is your final draft likely to come in under or over word count? Some people can write to word count without trouble, but most of us tend towards going over or under. Second point, are you a planner or a pantser? A planner makes a nice outline, maybe complete with Roman numerals and bullet points, while a pantser flies by the seat of their pants and just sits down to write. And by the way, I didn't make up that term. It's commonly used in the creative writing community. One of the main ways to get yourself to write effectively is to set yourself up to enjoy writing. If you know that you often struggle to get to word count, don't worry about it. Write your first draft and then go back through and look at places where you can add more detail. Maybe by adding a quotation and analysis for additional evidence, or by mentioning a secondary source that supports or disagrees with your argument. Enjoy your writing and worry about word count later in the revision process. If you know you always write too much, don't worry about that either. Just write a long first draft and then figure out what you can cut. Do you need to cut whole paragraphs or ideas that made for some productive thinking but don't really belong in the final paper? Or do you need to tighten up the prose all the way through? Enjoy your writing and worry about word count later in the revision process. If you don't like doing outlines, that's fine. Just start writing. You'll need to build in some time later in the process to reorganize your paragraphs, but that's doable. Once you've got content you like, you can figure it out. Learn to like revision. If you get stalled with just writing, that's a great time to step back and see if you can outline a little. Pull out quotations you definitely want to use. Consider counter-arguments that might make your own argument stronger. If you're the type of person who can't start writing until you have a really detailed outline, embrace that. Don't rush yourself as you're figuring out what you want to say and what order to put it in. Outlining is writing, so don't beat yourself up. If you get stuck on an outline, step back and do a little free writing. One of my favorite exercises is timed free writing, where I write down 3 key terms and then give myself 5 minutes with an alarm to free write about each of the terms. That often generates at least one idea that I can put into the outline. The key in my mind is to figure out ways to make writing fun. Or, if that's never going to happen for you, to make writing not painful. Personally, I'm a pantser and an overwriter. Maybe that's why I love NaNoWriMo, which stands for National Novel Writing Month, a project that happens every year in November and has about 300,000 people around the world commit to writing 50,000 words in just 30 days. That's the length of a short novel about the word count of The Great Gatsby. I've signed up for Nano every year for the past 7 years. I've also signed up for Camp Nano, smaller events where writers choose their own word count every April and July. I don't always finish Nano, but I always do way more writing than I otherwise would. There are 2 elements that make Nano helpful for me and for many other writers. 1 is manageable metrics, and 2 is accountability. Now, in terms of manageable metrics, breaking down writing into manageable word counts really helps me. If I think, I'm going to sit down for half an hour and write 300 words, or I'm going to write 1 paragraph in the next hour, that's way more likely to get me started than thinking, I need to write a whole paper in the next week. Accountability. In general, it's important to set a goal in order to get started on a project. For many people, we're way more likely to meet the goal if we tell another person about it. NaNoWriMo or similar writing setups give you a space to share your goal with another person, or many other people, and to then report back. Sometimes you don't reach your goal. Sometimes you exceed it. But either way, you don't feel completely isolated. For me, it's very similar to having an accountability buddy at the gym. And either way, you find some pleasure in writing. One of the things students say to me most often is, I really like writing when it's going well, but that doesn't happen as often as I'd like. Yeah, me too. But finding a way to create small and manageable goals and to build off your own strengths and your own process, recognizing that your process isn't going to be the same as other people's, I think that's the way to get yourself started. And find a buddy. If you're in a writing class, you've got a bunch of potential writing buddies right there in class. If you're a student, you can find other students who have similar assignments and writing goals as you do. If you have to write for work, same. Find a colleague who might want to share their process with you, even if you're writing completely different kinds of products. And consider NaNoWriMo as a place to set extra goals for yourself. November for Big Nano and April and July for Camp Nano. Happy writing.